Welcome to The Deep Dives, the show that takes the vast, messy landscape of information and hands you the polished, actionable blueprint for success. Today, we are tackling what many people consider the Everest of self-improvement, achieving genuine fluency in a second language, specifically English. If you, the ambitious learner, have ever found yourself just drowning in endless advice, should I use a hanky? Do I need a pewter? Is grammar even important anymore than this deep dive is? Well, it's your lifeline.
It really is. And our mission today is to move past all the vague promises of quick mastery. We want to deliver a synthesis of proven pedagogical research. We've compiled insights from, the MSU English Language Center, major platforms like Preply and EF, academic writing guides.
From places like Monash and Newcastle, right?
Exactly. And even cutting-edge research on multimedia learning. We're creating a structured 5-step roadmap for you. We're going to start with the internal, the psychological challenges, and then progress through core skills, immersion techniques, and finally, advanced output practice.
I love that. I love that we're starting with the internal game. We so often rush to download the latest app. The sources are just crystal clear on this. If your mindset isn't right, even the best curriculum in the world is going to fail. We're essentially starting with the psychological fitness test.
That's exactly right. The foundation of fluency is not your vocabulary size, it's consistency. All the sources emphasize this no shortcut rule. Motivation isn't some feeling you just wait for to strike you like lightning. It's a result of action.
Okay, let's unpack that. This idea of an action generates motivation loop. How does that practically manifest when someone hits that, that mid-study slump?
Well, it's a feedback mechanism.
Yeah.
When you regularly sit down, even for a short structured session, say 20 minutes of flashcards or listening, you feel productive. And that feeling of productivity sustains momentum. It combats the feelings of laziness or even failure. Conversely, if you skip sessions, that initial excitement fades really rapidly. And the guilt of slacking actually accelerates the loss of motivation. So the act of just sitting down and opening the book, that is the single most important action you can take to generate motivation.
That reframes the entire effort. It's not about finding motivation to start. It's about starting in order to find motivation.
Yeah.
Beyond just consistency, the sources highlight that the learning process itself has to hit a specific dynamic balance. It has to be, I'm quoting here, appropriately enjoyable and challenging.
That balance is just crucial. It's crucial because it influences the tens of thousands of micro decisions a learner makes.
Okay, what do you mean by micro decisions?
Think about it. Every single day, you decide which resource to use, which video you're going to watch, which topic to discuss with a partner. If the challenge level is too high, you're reading highly technical material as a beginner, you face frustration and burnout.
And if it's too low?
If the challenge is too low, if you're only reviewing things you already know, you face boredom. The sweet spot, that appropriate level of difficulty, that's what maintains engagement and ensures actual cognitive growth.
So assuming we've established a consistent, appropriately challenging routine, we now face the actual internal obstacles. And the sources identify 5 major psychological roadblocks that can derail even the most determined learner. The first one is the fear of mistakes.
This is perhaps the most debilitating. The sources explain that this fear isn't just shyness. It's often a deep-rooted social survival mechanism. As children, we're conditioned to fear making mistakes in public, in school, socially, because mistakes carried a risk of correction, embarrassment, or even rejection.
And as an adult, that mechanism just carries over.
It translates directly into a fear of appearing stupid or unprofessional in front of a native speaker or a colleague.
But in language learning, avoiding mistakes means you're avoiding learning altogether. So how do we practically overcome that deep-seated avoidance behavior?
The key is shifting the goalpost. Instead of aiming for perfection, which is, let's be honest, unattainable early on, you have to embrace non-perfectionism. A proactive step is to establish a mandatory mistake quota.
A mandatory mistake quota. I like that. What does that look like?
You set a goal to have, say, 5 low-stakes, potentially embarrassing interactions every day. Maybe sending a slightly incorrectly phrased text to a language partner, or trying a new hard verb conjugation out loud. By reframing the mistake as a necessary data point for improvement rather than a failure, you start to dismantle that old survival mechanism. Mistakes are the fuel for fluency.
Okay, a mandatory mistake quota, it forces output. The next issue ties in directly with this. Self-limiting beliefs, which are often fueled by high stress and anxiety.
The research here is compelling. Stress and anxiety don't just make learning difficult, they act, and this is a quote, like a wall that physically impedes cognitive access and memory formation.
A wall?
A wall. When your mind is filled with cortisol and worries about work, family, or even the process of learning itself, it struggles immensely to absorb and encode new information. Language acquisition demands a relaxed, focused state.
So if a learner is chronically stressed, it doesn't matter how many vocabulary drills they do, it's just not going to stick.
Pretty much.
What external, maybe unconventional support did the sources mention to achieve that calm and focused mind?
Well, there was an acknowledgement that for severe anxiety, traditional language instruction might not be enough. Some sources suggest that the first step toward fluency must be external support, counseling, or even structured techniques like hypnotherapy to manage that underlying anxiety.
So dealing with the root cause of the stress first.
Exactly. Achieving mental clarity outside the language classroom is sometimes the prerequisite for success inside it. A focused mind is an absorbent mind.
That is a profound insight. Okay, let's move to the third roadblock. The lack of confidence in speaking. This is the classic trap, isn't it? The perpetual intermediate learner who just keeps studying grammar, waiting for that mythical day they'll finally feel ready to talk.
Confidence is always the cart, never the horse. It's the overthinking, that internal monologue asking, did I say that right? Was that the correct tense? That leads to hesitancy, self-correction, or just abandoning the sentence entirely.
And that doubt then just reinforces the lack of confidence. It's a vicious cycle.
It is. The solution, which sounds simple but is fundamentally hard, is immediate frequent speaking. Confidence doesn't arrive before you start. You build it by forcing output right now, accepting that it will be messy and inefficient for a while.
The fourth roadblock, lack of motivation, brings us full circle to where we started. If that initial excitement fades, how do we systematically reignite that internal spark?
This requires some introspection. When the novelty wears off, when the apps aren't shiny anymore, and the grammar just looks intimidating, you have to return to the deep-rooted, fundamental reasons for learning the language in the first place.
Is it about career growth?
Is it career growth?
Yeah.
Is it the ability to connect deeply with a specific culture or with family members? The sources essentially suggest you need to document your why.
Right.
Precisely. If your goal is vague, just, I want to be fluent, it won't survive the difficult days. But if your goal is specific, I need to be able to present Q3 financial results to the German client team without a translator by next June. That provides the necessary gravity.
That's a real tangible goal.
It is, and it keeps the daily routine in place, even when you feel exhausted. That deep-rooted reason transforms language study from a hobby into a sustained, non-negotiable priority.
With that psychological foundation set, we can now move to the foundational input skills. This is the bulk of that 80% input rule we mentioned, acquiring the raw material. Let's start with vocabulary. We're looking beyond introductory lists here to a measurable, high-impact goal.
We're targeting the 1,000 most frequently used English words, and this isn't a vanity list. Linguistic studies show that mastering the top 1,000 to 2,000 words allows a learner to understand roughly 80% of everyday conversational English.
80%, that's huge.
It is, and a high percentage of non-technical written text. It is simply the fastest way to functional comprehension.
And the sources provide a remarkably clear path for mastering this list, for moving it from just a static list on a page to an active tool.
That's where technology meets pedagogy. The sources recommend taking that alphabetical list, words ranging from a Ekin ability all the way through to violence and visit, and immediately inputting them into an online flashcard management tool. The key here is using spaced repetition systems, or SRS, things like Anki.
For listeners who may have heard the term Anki but don't quite grasp its power, can you explain why SRS is so much more effective than, say, just traditional rote memorization?
Sure. Traditional methods rely on you reviewing all your flashcards constantly. An SRS platform like Anki tracks exactly when your brain is likely to forget a specific piece of information.
So it's personalized.
Highly personalized. It introduces new words frequently, but crucially, it forces you to revisit words you find difficult more often and words you know well less often.
So it's actively managing your cognitive load for you.
Exactly. It minimizes wasted review time and just maximizes retention efficiency. We see users discussing this intensely online, even asking questions like, how many words should I learn a day? Because the system is designed to manage that workload based on proven memory science. It's why learners report success over many, many years of study.
So it's a system tailored to your specific forgetting curve, ensuring maximum impact for minimum effort, a powerful use of that 80% input time. Now let's talk about reading strategies. This isn't just about leisurely enjoyment. It's about building speed and coping mechanisms, especially for those in academic or professional environments.
Reading efficiency is, well, it's non-negotiable for mastery. We know from the source material that many ambitious learners fail high-stakes tests or job performance requirements simply because they cannot finish everything by the time limit.
They just run out of time.
They run out of time, so the goal has to be rapid, functional comprehension, not meticulous word-for-word translation.
That brings us to a critical strategy: coping with unknown words. What's the specific protocol when you encounter a word you don't know in a graded reader or an article?
The general rule is skip it.
Just skip it.
You have to train your brain to rely on context. Stop looking up every single unfamiliar word unless, and this is the crucial exception comprehension of the entire story or the main argument, is entirely dependent on that one word. If the meaning of the paragraph holds without it, keep reading quickly.
Okay, and what happens after we finish the text? We move into what the sources call the review cycle.
The review cycle is a three-part process. First, you note the difficult passages. Second, you go back and attempt to understand those difficult sections, maybe looking up necessary vocabulary only now. And third, and this is the most important part, you must read the story again.
A second time through.
A second time. That second reading is not about decoding, it's about solidifying meaning. It allows you to discover things that you did not find the first time. Because your brain isn't struggling with new vocabulary, it can focus entirely on structure, tone, and nuance, which rapidly improves your comprehension speed.
This all leads directly to grammar and sentence structure. This is where so many learners get stuck, spending years on conjugation tables. And the sources give a very clear priority shift regarding grammar acquisition.
Yes. The overarching finding is that grammar rules should be secondary to immediate speaking practice. The initial goal is communicative competence. Can a native speaker understand your intended meaning? Once you are regularly speaking, the grammatical rules will start to sink in naturally as you receive input and correct yourself over time.
But for those pursuing academic or high-level professional English, there is no skipping formal structure. You have to be able to construct sophisticated arguments. Let's drill into the academic requirements detailed in the sources, starting with the three fundamental sentence types.
Right. The structure progression is simple, compound, and complex. Simple sentences are the foundation. One independent clause, an IC, which expresses a complete thought. The compound sentence takes two of those independent clauses and connects them, showing a relationship between two full ideas. This is where punctuation becomes absolutely vital.
This is where it gets really interesting, because the connections are not always intuitive. Lay out the three acceptable formal ways to join two independent clauses to form a compound sentence. Let's pay close attention to the punctuation required by guides like the one from the University of Newcastle.
Okay. Method 1. You join two independent clauses using a coordinating conjunction, the fanboys for, and nor, but, or, yet so, and it has to be preceded by a comma. So, I see, comma, coordinating conjunction, I see.
Give us an example.
The climate crisis is urgent, but many nations are slow to react.
Okay, that one's relatively common. What about method 2, which uses a different type of connector?
Method 2 uses an adverbial conjunction, words like however, therefore, consequently, or moreover, and the structure here is very demanding. I see, semicolon, adverbial conjunction, comma, I see.
Wow, okay. So a semicolon before and a comma after.
You must use the semicolon before the conjunction and the comma after. A slight punctuation error here results in a severe grade penalty in most academic settings.
That feels quite complex to master under pressure. And the third method?
The third method is the cleanest and the shortest. Simply connecting the two ICs using only a semicolon. I see. I see. This implies a very close and equal relationship between the two complete thoughts.
Like the example from the source.
Glasgow was the second city to have an underground railway system. London was the first. It's efficient and it's sophisticated.
Now, let's move to the complex sentence. This is the structure that truly allows for nuance and a hierarchy of ideas.
A complex sentence combines one independent clause with at least one dependent clause, or DC. The dependent clause cannot stand alone. It starts with a subordinating word, like if, because, after, or although. The crucial difference in punctuation depends on the order of the clauses.
Can you illustrate that flexibility for us?
Yes. If the dependent clause comes before the independent clause, you must use a comma to separate them. For example, because the policy was ineffective, the committee rejected the proposal. However, if the independent clause comes first, the comma is generally omitted unless the dependent clause is extremely long or structurally confusing. So, The committee rejected the proposal because the policy was ineffective.
The sources highlight specific structural failures related to these rules that trip up even advanced learners. We have to drill into the comma splice and the sentence fragment.
These are the classic academic writing pitfalls. A comma splice is the misuse of a comma to join two independent clauses without the necessary coordinating conjunction or semicolon.
So just a comma by itself isn't strong enough.
It's not. For instance, using only a comma here is a severe error. Every organization develops a system of shared values. This shared culture can restrict the creative individual thinking of employees. You must use a period, a semicolon, or a conjunction with a comma.
And the sentence fragment. That's where a dependent clause is just left dangling on its own.
Precisely. A fragment occurs when you punctuate a dependent clause or a relative clause as if it were a full sentence. If you write, "If there is no love in the world," and end it with a period, that's a fragment. It starts with if, so it depends on a main clause to complete its meaning.
And the same can happen with a relative clause.
Right. For example, art history teaches people how to evaluate and interpret works of art, which raises the question of subjectivity. That second sentence is incomplete and refers back to the first. It's a fragment.
Let's quickly clarify those relative clauses, the ones defined by the pronouns who, which, and that.
A relative clause always follows immediately after the noun it refers to. Since the relative pronoun who, which, that replaces the noun, it functions as the subject within its own clause. And this is key for understanding non-restrictive clauses. Non-restrictive clauses, those that provide extra non-essential information, are separated by commas and can be removed without impacting the main meaning of the sentence.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. The Mona Lisa, which was stolen in 1911, is housed in the Louvre. You can remove that middle clause, which is stolen in 1911, and the sentence remains grammatically sound and retains its main thought. This distinction is absolutely crucial for sophisticated writing.
We've established the foundation and the structural rules. Now we transition to immersion, how we actively process that 80% input volume. The modern learner has an unparalleled advantage here: multimedia.
Oh, multimedia has revolutionized input. The research confirms that the combination of audio and visual input is significantly more effective than audio alone, especially for intermediate students developing their listening skills. The study cited found that animations with subtitles were highly effective compared to just simple audio recordings.
That makes intuitive sense, but why is it so effective? Is it just that seeing the words simultaneously reinforces memory?
It does that, but it does so much more. It solves the decoding problem. We need to differentiate between linear and nonlinear multimedia. Linear media like standard TV shows or films improves vocabulary, grammar, and general listening because it provides sustained, structured content.
Okay, and nonlinear.
Nonlinear multimedia like interactive video games, AI-driven drills, or customized practice scenarios improves reading, listening, speaking, and vocabulary because the learner controls the pace and the interaction.
But the sources noted there's no clear winner between the two types yet.
That's because the effectiveness often depends on the learner's specific goal, but the shared component that makes them so powerful is the ability to connect the sound to the sight. And when using subtitles, they must be verbatim transcriptions appearing at the bottom of the screen. This is an absolute game changer for mastering reduced forms of speech.
Reduced forms. That's where English pronunciation often confuses new learners, right? Those fast, slurred combinations. Give us a classic example.
Okay, take the colloquial phrase, what to shows. A new listener might hear that as one unintelligible sound.
I can see that.
But when they see the verbatim subtitle, what did you say? And crucially, they see it displayed while hearing the reduced form, they connect the written form to the oral reality. They can then repeat the oral version, and by doing so, master a reduction that is essential for real-world listening fluency.
The power of multimedia also allows the learner to move beyond simple linguistic decoding to inferring intent, which is a huge step toward cultural fluency.
This is critical because language is only half the message. By watching media, you observe all the nonverbal cues. Facial expressions, body language, tone, the relationships between characters. The sources provide a wonderful example of this. If you hear a man say, "The bus takes too long," observing his eye roll or frustrated expression confirms that this is a refusal or an expression of unwillingness regarding that transport option.
And the response can completely change the interpretation.
Absolutely. If the woman then replies, "Well, airline tickets are expensive," and her expression is inviting or hopeful, the learner can infer that this is a subtle social invitation for the man to offer to pay for the more expensive alternative.
So you're learning the subtext.
You're learning that in English, statements are often questions, refusals, or suggestions. And the visual context provided by multimedia unlocks that deeper social comprehension.
Now let's structure this listening practice. The sources outline a modern three-stage lesson structure, and it requires a significant psychological shift away from older teaching methods.
The shift, and it's championed by experts in the field like Field, is the move away from the pre-listening stage being dominated by pre-teaching every single important new vocabulary word.
Oh, interesting.
The modern perspective acknowledges that in a real conversation, you don't get a glossary beforehand. Students have to develop the skill to cope with unfamiliarity.
So if we're not pre-teaching vocabulary, what is the purpose of the pre-listening stage now?
It's purely about setting context and motivation. It might involve a quick discussion about the topic or showing a short image prompt, anything to prepare the brain for the material and establish some interest.
Okay. What defines the intra-listening stage, the actual engagement with the audio or video? We need to clarify those technical terms. Extensive, intensive, selective, and just listening.
Right. This stage involves active engagement with preset tasks or questions. Let's break down those four modes. Extensive listening is listening for pleasure or general comprehension, often to longer pieces like a full movie or an audiobook. Intensive listening is forensic listening multiple times to short clips to catch every single word in detail.
And the other two.
Selective listening is listening specifically for one piece of information, like a name, a date, or a number. And just listening, or listening for the main idea, requires you to filter out details to understand the overall theme or mood. A good listening session will combine these modes using set questions.
And finally, the post-listening stage. What happens after the material has been processed?
The post-listening stage focuses on examining the functional language that was used. How did the speakers accomplish tasks like giving advice, expressing disagreement, or making suggestions? You infer vocabulary meaning from the context you've just absorbed. And crucially, older, repetitive activities like complex grammar analysis or simple listen and repeat drills are now considered less effective and are usually dropped from this final stage.
For independent learners using movies and videos, their personal 80% immersion time, what are the most effective strategies to maximize learning and minimize frustration?
We have several actionable tips. First, lower your cognitive load. Choose movies you already know the plot of. This allows your brain to focus 100% on linguistic decoding, not on trying to anticipate the narrative.
That's a great tip. What about for beginners?
For beginners, animated movies are excellent because the speech is generally clearer and the visual cues are often exaggerated.
How do we manage the sheer speed of native dialogue? That's often the biggest barrier for people.
You have to use the technology. Utilizing a media player to slow down the playback to half speed or even quarter speed for especially difficult 10-second segments is a key technique cited for improving English listening comprehension. It trains your ear to process the rapid phones. And returning to subtitles, start with native subtitles, not translations. Watch the segment once with subtitles, then challenge yourself immediately by turning them off for the second viewing.
Why the second viewing without them?
Because your brain has the memory of the written form, which greatly aids pure auditory processing the second time through.
Finally, we need a method to turn that passive consumption into active learning.
That is the movie journal. You pause the video when you hear a useful, authentic, real-life phrase, a slang term, an idiom, or a useful functional phrase, and you write it down. This active collection turns passive viewing into a personalized library of authentic language. Also, maintain consistency. Stick to movies from one country or accent area initially, as the variation in English is just vast.
We've built the massive 80% input foundation. Now for the crucial 20% activation, the output that converts knowledge into demonstrable fluency. If you don't speak, you won't get fluent, and the sources emphasize highly structured practice.
The most effective model is a high commitment structure, something like an intensive 90-day challenge. This model isn't just about taking classes, it's a commitment designed to build comfort, confidence, and most importantly, fearlessness.
So it directly counters the psychological roadblocks we discussed at the beginning.
Exactly.
Walk us through the specific components that make these intensive programs so effective, moving beyond just standard classroom instruction.
They are highly personalized and results-driven. It starts with a learning strategy session, where the learner and an expert identify specific goals. Are they aiming for presentation mastery or small talk fluency? This then leads to a customized study plan. The core of it includes weekly private lessons with a dedicated fluency expert and personalized homework tailored to that individual's needs.
So the curriculum is flexible based on what's at stake for the learner. whether it's high-level job interviews or simply managing daily tasks.
Exactly. The skills developed are focused on applied, real-world output, structuring professional presentations, mastering small talk etiquette, and handling high-stakes communication like job interviews or complex daily tasks, like navigating banking or doctor appointments. The feedback mechanism is immediate and specific, targeting weak spots in pronunciation or grammar that, an AI tool might miss.
This sounds essential for the learner who needs to rapidly adapt their English for professional success, like the accountant Lily from The Source, who wanted to speak comfortably, confidently, and without fear.
Yes. The difference between an advanced learner and a truly fluent speaker is often the ability to perform under pressure. These structured environments simulate that pressure, but in a safe space. They allow the learner, like the student Amara, who was struggling to understand clients, to gain the necessary confidence specifically for meetings and phone calls by receiving tailored feedback on their specific professional dialect.
For learners who may not require or afford that intensive, structured tutor model, the world of language exchange apps provides a crucial outlet for that 20% output time. The sources review a massive landscape of tools. Let's identify the best ones for activating output.
The overarching goal of these apps is safe, real-life interaction where you can learn from native speakers and absorb cultural nuances. We can categorize them based on what kind of interaction they optimize for.
Okay, starting with the one that blurs the line between a simple exchange partner and a personalized expert.
That would be Preply. While it's often listed alongside exchange apps, it is fundamentally a platform for booking personalized one-on-one lessons with tutors. They start from around $10 per lesson, which makes personalized coaching much more accessible.
So it's for someone who needs more targeted help.
It's ideal for the learner who needs targeted help with complex structures or specific regional accents that a random partner just cannot reliably teach.
For learners seeking instant, spontaneous exchanges, without that formalized teacher-student dynamic, what are the top platforms?
For instance, spontaneous exchanges, where you are matched quickly to practice immediately. Speaky is cited as a top option. If the learner is sensitive about maintaining a fair balance between their native language and their English practice time, then Lingby is highlighted as being best for equally balanced exchanges. It ensures both partners get their desired practice ratio.
What about the feature-rich platforms that leverage technology to assist the actual conversation?
HelloTalk is highly innovative. It provides a massive community and has built-in correction and translation tools directly into the chat interface. If you make a mistake, your partner can quickly tap the error and offer a non-intrusive correction.
But there are some downsides.
While users sometimes report technical issues, things like dropped calls, which can interrupt the flow of a conversation, then there is Elsa Speak, which specifically targets the critical barrier of self-consciousness. It uses sophisticated AI to analyze your pronunciation against native models, giving tailored feedback. It focuses on audio and conversation scenarios, reducing that fear of embarrassment that often occurs when speaking with a human partner.
So it's like a personal pronunciation coach.
It's essentially your personal, patient, and non-judgmental pronunciation coach right in your pocket.
And we also have apps that are dedicated to building genuine long-term connections with safety as a priority.
Idioma really stands out here. It focuses heavily on security and genuine connections. It offers optional profile verification, one-click blocking, and specific message filters designed to create a safer environment, particularly for female users, by disabling photo messages. They also emphasize a pen pal program for those seeking to build deeper, long-term connections that can grow into meaningful exchanges over time.
What about leveraging traditional community networks instead of dedicated apps?
For physical in-person practice, Meetup is fantastic for finding language exchange groups, especially in big cities and towns in the Americas and Europe. And for digital networks, we have to use the existing massive platforms like Facebook and Reddit. A simple search for your native language to English language exchange will yield countless groups.
And the advantage of Facebook.
The social advantage of Facebook is that you can often view a prospective partner's history, their likes, their interests, before you even connect. And that adds a layer of familiarity and trust before engaging in a direct conversation.
We've covered input and speaking output. Now for the final stage of mastery, advanced writing. This is about moving beyond just grammatical accuracy into refining style, commanding concision, and developing a distinctive voice.
Writing is where your command of vocabulary and structure is truly, truly tested. But success in these advanced drills really starts with preparation. The sources provide a pre-exercise checklist for setting up the optimal learning environment.
We need to set the scene for success. What are the best practices for structuring these sessions?
First, identify and utilize your prime writing time. This means recognizing when your circadian rhythm and your cognitive energy are naturally peaked for deep focus, whether that's before dawn or late at night, and dedicating that period specifically to advanced study.
Yeah. What else?
Second, use a designated space, a quiet cafe, a specific desk, or a park bench, to signal to your brain that this is deep work time. Third, set micro goals for the session. Don't just write. Aim to practice simplicity or perhaps descriptive language, or maybe just the compound sentence structure we covered earlier.
And what about the mindset going in?
Fourth, and this is psychologically critical, is maintaining an open mind. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If a drill feels difficult, that means you are engaging the resistance necessary for growth. And finally, manage burnout. Take breaks, and ensure these intense drills don't overexert the mental energy you need for your paid work or main responsibilities later in the day.
Now for the actual drills, which are designed to force stylistic growth. The first one is manipulating perspective, the level up exercise.
This immediately challenges your vocabulary and tense use. The basic level is rewriting an excerpt from a book or an article in a different person. For example, switching a first-person narrative, I went to the store, to a third-person narrative, you went to the store.
And the advanced level of this exercise.
The real level up is taking a recent draft of your own, maybe a professional email or an academic essay, and rewriting a significant paragraph from the perspective of someone who disagrees vehemently with your stance.
Oh, it's tough.
It is. It forces you to use counter-argumentative language, explore logical weaknesses, and test the clarity of your original ideas under pressure.
The next drill is about honing conversational flow, which translates directly to better dialogue in writing and potentially better structure in presentations. It involves writing dialogue like a script.
This is a fantastic exercise in showing, not telling. You craft a conversation between two characters, but you absolutely prohibit the use of dialogue tags. No, I said. No, she whispered. No, he murmured.
So how does the reader know who's speaking?
You must use context, action, and character voice alone to let the reader know. This demands that you rely on strong action verbs and physical descriptions to convey tone, making your conversational writing incredibly dynamic.
For highly practical application and concision, we look to the ad writing drill.
This teaches you to adapt your tone and respect word count limits based on the medium. Scenario 1. Write an ad for print media, where space is expensive. You limit yourself to 100 words maximum, which demands a formal, professional, direct tone. Scenario 2. Write for an online or social media platform. Here, you can allow up to 250 words, utilizing a friendlier, more relaxed, and personable tone. This forces you to practice word economy and audience adaptation simultaneously.
We also have exercises specifically designed to elevate descriptive language skills, moving past a reliance on simple adjectives. This focusing on a single sense.
This is a creative challenge to break that mental reliance on visual descriptions. You must choose a scene or an object and then write a description focused entirely on sound or smell or touch. This forces you to access and activate specialized vocabulary, using words like hiss, acrid, velvety that might be dormant, significantly enriching your descriptive command.
Now we come to the ultimate test of concision and impact. Microfiction and the Philosophical Cleanse, recommended by the author Ursula K. Le Guin.
Microfiction trains you to choose only the most impactful words. You begin by writing a complete story in under 500 words. Then you shrink it to 250 words. The true test of compression is reducing it to just 2 sentences, or the ultimate challenge. A 6-word story, like the famous, heartbreaking example, for sale, baby shoes, never worn. This teaches you the power of implied narrative and absolute word economy.
And Ursula K. Le Guin's method for purifying writing style is a pretty radical approach to grammatical health.
It is about eliminating weakness. Le Guin advocates for practicing vivid description using only verbs, nouns, pronouns, and articles, deliberately eliminating the crutch of adjectives and adverbs. Instead of relying on a weak verb supported by an adverb like, she walked slowly and carefully down the hall, you force yourself to find a single powerful verb. She crept down the hall.
Can you give us another example of replacing that weak description with powerful action using this method?
Certainly. If you write, the moon was snow white and bright against the inky sky, you're using 3 weak to be verbs and several descriptive adjectives. Le Guin would push you to change it to, the moon glowed against the sky. The word glowed does all the work of the previous adjectives and the weak verb.
There's a related structural cleansing exercise, too, that eliminates unnecessary sentence padding.
That is the elimination of expletive constructions, phrases that start with there is, there are, it is, or it was. They just add unnecessary words before the subject. Instead of writing, there are hundreds of butterflies around us, you remove the expletive and restructure to bring the subject and the active verb forward. Hundreds of butterflies fluttered around us. This simple grammatical shift creates more direct, efficient, and sophisticated prose. It's a true sign of advanced writing mastery.
That is a phenomenal collection of advanced strategies. We've covered the entire journey, starting with the deep internal work of managing fear, moving through the 80% input phase of mastering the 1,000 most common words and decoding media intent, and culminating in the 20% output mastery of compound sentences and six-word storytelling.
The structural takeaway is, well, it's non-negotiable. Fluency requires combining rigorous, structured learning like nailing the complex sentence structures required by academic programs with high-volume, enjoyable practice. That balance is the key. The 80% input must be active and sustained, and the 20% output, whether through highly personalized tutors on pre-ply or through structured writing drills, must be constant and focused on stepping outside your comfort zone, like forcing yourself to remove the subtitles entirely.
And if we look forward, the rapid development in our learning tools suggests an evolution of this entire roadmap. We confirm that linear multimedia is highly effective for listening and grammar. We also noted that the sources suggested further research, specifically focusing on multimedia's effect on speaking and writing skills.
Precisely. We have highly sophisticated nonlinear tools like Elsa Speak using AI to provide immediate specific pronunciation feedback. They are essentially machine-based conversation partners that eliminate the human fear factor, and these tools are only getting smarter and more integrated.
So we have the human-led intensive programs designed for confidence, and the AI-driven tools designed for eliminating the fear of phonetic mistakes. What does this convergence mean for the ambitious English learner pursuing mastery?
This raises a fascinating and I think a provocative question for you to consider on your journey. Given the rapid advancement and proven effectiveness of interactive, nonlinear, multimedia AI tutors, sophisticated correction software, and virtual reality scenarios, how much further can technology take language acquisition before human interaction becomes merely the luxury accessory rather than the core requirement for achieving fluency? That is the balance between human connection and technological efficiency you must determine for your own path forward.